The following session is a psychic reading conducted by Mrs. Irva Peterson with the sensitive Ross Peterson at Laughing Gull Point, Garden, Michigan. Please clear the mind and inform us when the mind is clear.
The mind is clear.
Dear Lord, please protect this entity from all negative influences, regardless of source, and give us the answers we seek of this inquiring mind through the manifestation of truth, intelligence, and love. Amen. Would you please allow your mind to go to whom, to where, to what, and to when it is directed?
The questions we have all pertain to karma and the law of grace, and are designed to be available to the general public in aiding the greatest number of people toward the furthering of their soul development. Please adapt your answers to the fulfillment of this objective and phrase your answers to the comprehension level of the layman rather than to the specialist. What is the definition of karma?
The simplest expression of that of karma, it is the evidence of that of the force of God in action, that would be known as cause and effect, that it is as of retribution, that it is as of compensation, that it is sowing exactly that you reap. In its simplest expression, it is simply a statement or a definition of that each entity gives forth is returned to that entity in exact and perfect measure. However, there are many misconceptions of that of karma. The first of which is karma is totally of self. Karma is totally of self. It is not that ye owe this one or that one anything. It is not that any entity owes thee this or that. There are those who have foolishly left their physical hoard, hoping to will it unto themselves, and into this they should be pitied for their ignorance. For ye see, the karma of one experience might not be that is known as the karma of another. For ye will find that the personality, which is but a shadow of the soul and a portion or a part of the karma, in any experience, might not fulfill the total karma or the total that is necessary for the soul to return to that from whence it cometh. The personality might be this time of one who is outgoing, smiling, gregarious, the wit and humor. However, the soul might pick another point in time to return to answer other needs of that might be karma, or that is soul-lived, and might be considered personality-wise as a dullard, a witless one indeed, one of little compassion or understanding. Yet understand ye that this is the same soul expressing itself differently so that it may meet all the inequities of self that it has sown in previous existences, beginning with the first entering in. Now, ye must needs understand that a soul would hover over that of the mother, over that of the father, before it would enter in. Now the mother has her own unique karma, or record, which is simply to state that she at that point in time is a summation of all the things that she has been, seen, or done. This is true also in regards to that of the physical father. Now this soul that will inhabit the vehicle that is brought forth, or that of the infant, must by necessity take on some of what might be considered the karma of the mother, the karma of the father. Now this would pertain to that of environment, period or point in that of time, home life, and to a degree the physiognomy of the infant itself. See. Now, there is not a jot nor a title that is wasted. And karma is recorded on the thought level, not so much the deeds, for many of the motives of deeds committed are classic examples of the expression of selfishness. That is held in the mind is that the entity becomes. And that you would fear or that you would hate is that each entity becomes. It is simply the scales of justice swinging from one extreme to another in perfect balance. The other misconception, or that seems to be the nature of the beast, so to speak, or that of man, is that karma is a load to be carried, a weight to be shouldered, a burden to bear. And to a degree, those that would inhabit that of the physical form have those sinful qualities that have yet to be met. But nonetheless, this expression, that of the physical life, offers more opportunities in order for self to meet self than any other dimension that is of God. And there are rewards also, for know ye that one that would be long-suffering, that one that is forgiven, is that one who will not suffer and will be forgiven. For karma is the perfect balance of the force of God in action. Now, thy God is pure in essence, and is to be defined simply as love. However, for the expression of karma, it would be best to consider the force of God as both a benevolent and a passive force. A God that is so loving that he would give thee the greatest of gifts and let thee command the strongest of powers. The greatest of gifts would be thy choice. For each entity above all other has choice, and that they would produce as the doddering old man of today is yet to be the child of tomorrow. That of the strongest of powers is that of the power of willpower. For in essence, literally, there is no stronger power in existence. For each entity, in direct proportion to the amount of faith that it has as a portion of its record, can so set aside karma through the action of will by willing itself to be first and foremost with the Godhead in all harmony. That ye met out to another is that ye met out unto thyself. A simpler explanation of the fashion in which karma works is again to understand that thoughts are real as anything ye might know. And that ye think of another is thought of thee. In essence, on different levels, all minds are tied together, and mind is ever the builder, ever the master. karma expressed in the physical life can be easily witnessed by observing the statement of truth of like doth attract like. And this is on that of the mental level. For if the karma of the entity is that of returning with knowledge to the Godhead, then that entity can only be attracted to those who are of a like mind, and this is their karma. Then this becomes the karma of the group. There are karma of cities, of peoples, and of nations. Know ye that the karma of a nation is that any nation that would conquer another in itself must be conquered. That ye sow is that ye reap. This pertains to the individual of self, to the peoples of self, to the nations of self. See, as to that ye would speak of as to the law of grace, there is many a witless one who would deceive themselves by strongly desiring to live under the law of grace for a simple reason. Under the law of grace, all is contentment, all is peace of mind. This is true, but it is simply the attitude and the manner in which the law of grace is viewed that determines whether there is truth or self-deceit. For if ye would look under one who so knows the law and understands the law that they become the law, that of love, then they are under the law of grace. Now the witless ones would desire this because they desire no problems. But if ye would look at those who live under this law, they have problems that are legion and of a magnitude that few could bear, only if they would live under the law of grace. Those who live under the law of grace have justly earned the right, for they would forgive all. They would forgive 70 times 7, if necessary. They hold no hate, no envy, no desire for revenge. The lust has been quieted. Avarice is not a part of their being. For they look upon all and know that their brother is truly but an extension of themselves. They understand fully that of the Christ consciousness and that of the exercising and the active lust of the vilest passion are one and the same force, and they condemn not that one who would practice these most vile passions, the Spirit of God, but would love him. There is but one that they would condemn, that one who lives under the law of grace, and that be the hypocrite. For the hypocrite would meet their wrath, but in a loving fashion. This is the law of grace, the law of love. Problems, multitudes of problems, but the attitude is one that the entity would not be overly concerned about any problem, for the entity would simply quiet itself, enter the Holy of Holies, that of meditation, and would listen to those who would direct, guide, counsel, and inspire those whom he has made the pact with, in some cases perhaps even with the Godhead itself. And when this guidance is received, that entity does act upon it, knowing full well that most of the time Adversity will be placed in his path. Those who live under the law of grace welcome adversity as well as they do versity. See?
Please tell us why karma and the law of grace exist.
For this ye must go to that of the beginning, when there was those souls that did hover around this dimension and seek to separate themselves from that of the Godhead, seek to divide themselves from the companionship for which they were created by that of God himself, you see. Now there were those who became entrapped in that of the rocks, the trees, and certain forms of animals. And in so doing, separated themselves from the God force. Now, in essence, a path had to be created whereby these souls could return to that from whence they had come. This path of perfect justice, perfect compensation, or perfect retribution is the active principle of the God force in this and in all other dimensions. Why? Because by separating themselves, they had created self, not as a companion or a co-creator or a portion of the body, that of a corpuscle in the body of God, but as self. Now, self, of course, is the only sin, because self was created by the choice and the action of that of the soul of willing itself to enter this dimension. Self must return to self by laying aside self, but meeting all aspects of self. God would judge none. God would not give any the advantage or the disadvantage, but God would give all the opportunity to produce their own advantages or disadvantages. And in this way, whether an entity knows it or not, is aware of it or not, each are attempting to return to the Godhead. Some do so by bringing forth destructive aspects of the force of God, and some constructive force. This was a path that was created by God, so that that of choice and willpower could be utilized to return to that from whence they had come. See.
Could you please give us some examples of historic figures, perhaps, who have chosen both the destructive path and the constructive path?
There are no's that ye know in this time and of other times that have been recorded through that of history. One that is quite common is the Roman who fiddled while Rome burned. For Nero then was one who looked down upon all men and despised them and used them. He caused many to become paralyzed and immobilized with fear and hate. Now that of Nero is not in the flesh at this time, but was of a most recent time. Yet the entity was born to a body that was certainly imperfect in its function, for it was racked with immobility, paralysis, and partial paralysis. Only by discerning that of the eye could you see that that was beneath, the imploring cry for love. If ye would look in thy own time, there are those who are known as the spokesmen of the angels, the evangelists. Even now, the medium that doth carry the messages in thy point in time of the fair-haired one. Graham is the name, is answering unto himself that of a lifetime of extremes. In this, the entity is regarded as Most High for his piety, honesty, and strong desire to know and place God first and foremost. Yet in past ages, the entity was regarded also as Most High. But the entity at the time of Christ was that of the legionnaire, and one who was responsible as Crassus for crucifying thousands and thousands of Christians. These are one and the same entity. You must understand that that is lived in one lifetime must be meted out to thyself in another lifetime. And one extreme simply produces the opposite extreme, until finally there is moderation in all things except the desire for the attainment of that of the Christ consciousness. If ye would find those who would hate the leper, then that entity will come back disfigured. You will find that many a racial bigot has been beaten to death or subjugated to a lowly station by one of another race. You would find many a mother who has cared not for that of the child would now be that of a child. You must understand that in the physical form, illness or well is created by that is a portion of the record of the entity. If you would witness the epileptic, then you simply witness one who most usually has entertained excessive sexual gratifications. If you would see that one who is confused as to the sexual identity of that he or she would be in this existence, it is usually because they have condemned these entities in other lifetimes. If ye would look to all the prominent leaders of nations of this world at this point in time, know that without exception, each and every one was an Atlantean and a leader, and most lost in that experience, and are only creating another opportunity because of conditions that are developing for them to meet self. The scales of justice must swing. Ye would look to that of the little one who spoke with a loud voice and persecuted that of the Hebrew, even unto the point of physical death. The incarnated Hittite who called himself Hitler. Do you think that he has planted the seeds for any less than 1,000 lifetimes as a Jew? Nay, we think not so. See?
We would explain further for thee that of karma and the law of grace by showing it demonstrated in that ye know as physical illnesses. Now, this must be met, for the body is but an extension of the mind, and the mind is a portion of that of the record. But know ye, any that would totally, without reservation, accept the love of God, lay aside all karma, live under the law of grace, and would radiate perfect health instantaneously, look to that was given to thee as the Master, Jesus, who attained the Christ consciousness, the one who so knew the law and understood the law that he became the very expression of the law. And those that did accept him as the Son of God laid aside their karma and were healed, for the blind did see and the lame did walk, and those possessed of devils regained their very sanity. This is that can be done for those who would accept the love of God. See, we are finished with the subject.
Thank you. Please remove all negative influences from this entity now. Allow the body to become completely relaxed.
It is.
Allow any further healing which may take place to take place now.
That it could be accepted has been accepted.
Please awaken now, feeling completely refreshed and relaxed.